guys, welcome back to my channel. Hello! So today we're doing my April wrap-up. I read 13 books in April, so I'm going to be going through and reviewing all of them for you. So if you're new here, how I do my wrap-ups is I start with the books I like the least, and then I work my way up to the books I like the most. I am proud to announce that this has been my best reading month of all time. Of all time. This has been groundbreaking for me because if you've been here a while, I always have something to scream about. I am not okay. And this is the first month that I only have one book that I didn't like, and the rest I recommend. I recommend every single book in this video except for one. That is like groundbreaking. That is wild. So anyways, if you want to see my reviews, just keep watching. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe. I post a lot of horror, extreme horror, and literary fiction reviews and videos. So stay tuned for that. And I'm going to start with my, well, I don't even own it, thank God, because that book sucked. My 2-star book was A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck, I believe. What the hell was this? This book was boring as hell. This book felt pretentious as hell. This book was a short stay in hell, literally. So this is a book where these people, they go to hell, and it's not like what you think. There's no fire, there's no Satan. It's just, you get sent there, and it's kind of like a luxury hotel. They give you whatever you want. If you die, you just wake up the next day. If you get hurt, you wake up healed the next day. The only way to escape it is you are stuck there, and there's this library with an infinite amount of books. A lot of them are like symbols, a lot of them are random letters. There's just nonsense books, and you have to find the one that closely resembles your life, and if you're wrong, you have to keep searching for it until you find it. And basically everyone's just stuck there. Some of them are stuck there like for an eternity and can't ever find it. And it's just the same thing over and over. You have nothing to look forward to. Sounds great in premise. The execution, not so much. I was bored out of my mind. The writing was so boring. He mentions Zoroastrianism probably 1,000 times, and this book was only 100 pages long. I mean, he goes on and on and on about the religion of Zoroastrianism and how you have to believe in it to get out of hell. And oh my God. Oh my God. This felt so, like, I wanted to just throw up reading this book. I'm not even kidding. I hated this book so much. I couldn't focus. I actually started skimming towards the end because I was like, I can't even focus on this 100-page novella because I was so irritated by the writing. Like I said, the idea, great. The execution, I wanted to be executed. You get the point, okay? This book sucked. I'm sorry. A lot of people love this book. It has like, everyone gives this book 5 stars, and I don't understand. I don't see the hype. I'm sorry. I'm moving on now. 3-star books. I recommend everything from here on forward. The first one is Shark Heart by Emily Habeck. This is a book about a man who's turning into a great white shark. He's turning into a shark. I don't know, I'm still laughing about I'm still laughing about hell. I was there multiple times. So this man's turning into a great white shark. He's married, and it's basically like he knows that he's at the end of his life, and it's exploring the whole grief process of when you have a progressive illness or when you're chronically ill, and how people in relationships feel, and how the other person in a relationship feels kind of being with someone who is progressively getting worse. It's a lot. It's exploring that whole grief process, and I think the first chunk of this book was extremely beautiful. It's written in this way where it's like this kind of poetic prose. Some pages, there's like one paragraph. Some of it is like scenes from a play. Like it's kind of artsy. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm not a literary professor, but the thing that happened in this book that made it go downhill is suddenly you get to part 2 and you're exploring the wife's mom and her whole childhood and upbringing and all these things that were going on with the mom and like this other woman that was pregnant, and then I don't know. I'm literally choking. It was still like beautifully done and heartfelt and had a purpose, but just not enough to keep me intrigued. It just kind of lost its steam for me. So that's why I went with 3 stars, but I would still recommend it. Like I do still think it was really well done, and I really appreciate that commentary of like exploring what it's like to be chronically ill or progressively, you know, deteriorating and I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice a lot. For me, someone who is chronically ill and I'm going through this whole health scare thing, and like, I don't know, it was kind of a lot for me, but at the same time, it wasn't enough. I don't know how to describe it, but I still would recommend this one. And then my next 3-star was Drem Crom by Hamlin Bird. This is an extreme horror novella about this woman who, there's this new drug on the market, something to do with adrenaline, and she discovers it on the dark web, and she is basically searching the dark web for someone to provide her with this drug. She's very impulsive and she's looking to try this new drug out. So we're kind of following her in these chat rooms, and then we're following her as she takes the drug and kind of what happens to her and as she like slips into madness. I really liked the first half of this. I really liked the dark web elements. I liked the unhinged female main character. The second half is when the extreme horror kicks in, and it was kind of like goofy splatterpunk-esque. And it wasn't my favorite because I'm such a character-driven reader now. I would have loved to seen more like character development and like exploring the dark web and the deeper side of humanity, which is what I was hoping it was gonna do. But it kind of just took this turn where I wasn't a huge fan of the turn because it was so plot driven. And I'm such a character girly, we know this. So I don't think that this was a bad book because it was really well written, and I think a lot of people who like extreme horror, splatterpunk, whatever, would definitely like this, especially if you're a plot-driven reader. So I would still recommend this, and I would definitely check this one out if that sounds like something that you're into. I had one 3.5, and it was Eileen by Oteza Moshfegh. I was kind of in between how to rate this one. I had no idea. It could be 4 stars. I am very, I don't know. I think ratings are so stupid, but that's a whole other topic for another day. I do it because I want you guys to see like how much I enjoyed something, but this is like 3.5, 4 stars. So this is an unhinged woman book, again, literary fiction about this woman, Eileen. She is wild. She works at this boys' prison, she calls it, and she takes care of her alcoholic father. She is very lonely and isolated and not a happy camper. And one day, this woman, Rebecca, gets a job at her work, and she becomes obsessed with Rebecca because Rebecca seems perfect and she wants to be like her, etc. So that's kind of what we're following. It's really a book about absolutely nothing. Like the first 70-80% of this book is like nothing happens. It's just character being unhinged, saying crazy things. Like, and I really could feel for her and her sense of loneliness and some of the things that she was saying. It was relatable in a sense. I think you need to have this like deep-rooted sense of loneliness and isolation to kind of understand her, but she is also a horrible human being at the same time. And then towards the end of the book, there is this kind of like crime aspect that takes place with this twist that I'm not gonna say what it is, but I do think it was well done. I wasn't like obsessed with it, I wasn't mind blown with it, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. It just didn't like have as huge of an impact on me as I thought it would, but it was still very good. Then I have some more 4 stars here. The first one, Bret Easton Ellis, Less Than Zero. I don't know why it took me so long to read this book. This is a book where we're just following a bunch of 18-year-olds, I think they are, in LA, and they're rich, and they literally just spend their day doing drugs and having sex. You're just following a bunch of 18-year-olds doing drugs day after day. That's what it is. So our main character's name is Clay, and you're just following his kind of day-to-day life and his friends, and it's just written in this like weird way where it feels like a manic episode. I don't know how else to describe this, because it's like I went and did this, and then I did that, and then so-and-so came over and she did this, and then she did that, and then this person came over and then they did this, and then we did this, and then we did that, and then we did drugs, and then I'm like, what the fuck? It's literally a book about nothing. I'm just gonna be honest. But you're following them as they just go through day-to-day life and try to like fill this emptiness and this void with like drugs and sex and whatever else, because there's like nothing else to look forward to. It really explores nihilism and how like life is meaningless, and I mean, it gets really fucked up at the end. It gets bleak. It gets really like dark out of nowhere, and I loved that. If you know me, you know that that's like my favorite thing in the world. So the ending just really sucked me in and got me, because I was like, wow, that's fucked up. It does follow some touchy, deep subject matter, and I loved that. Following that like emptiness and that feeling of that lack of purpose and the shallowness of LA, and when you're like rich and have everything that you want, and it's like, okay, well, now what? You know, it's just that whole exploration, and I really enjoyed this. I can't wait to read the sequel. So that I'm going to be reading this month, and I'm really excited because I just love Bret Easton Ellis's writing. He's great. Next, a 4-star was Play It As It Lays by Joan Didion. This is about this woman, Maria, I think her name was, in the 1960s. She had kind of a rough upbringing and then became this actress, and she like married this famous actor husband, and he put her in 2 movies that were like really successful. And again, you're just kind of following her life, living in LA and dealing with the shallowness and the emptiness of things that are going on around there, like in this book. And you know, she gets involved in an affair and becomes pregnant and so on and so forth, and we start seeing her downward spiral and how people are treating her, and it's another nihilistic book. She says that she feels nothing, and you know, basically life is meaningless, etc., etc. I really liked the writing in this one. Again, is written in this like hazy way where you're only getting what you need. This is a very short book. It's like you're only getting these tiny little chapters where she just gives you the main gist of what you need to know, and you almost have to fill in the blanks for the rest. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like you're not going to get tons of character development of side characters and, you know, little detailed information about her thoughts and feelings. It's just giving you like the facts. It's giving you what you need to know, and it's up to you to figure out the rest, sort of a thing. Which I kind of had to get used to, because I am someone that is used to reading books where all the information is just fed to me in like a never-ending stream of consciousness. So it kind of took some getting used to, but then I was like, oh, I kind of like it. I don't know, it's different, extremely well written, depressing, bleak, kind of made me want to jump off a cliff. And yeah, I would love to read more from her. And you know what? I noticed the similarities in these two books, and I can see where he gets some inspiration from. So I was able to connect these, and I was like, oh, this all makes sense now. Everything in life makes sense. Everything in life came full circle. If you watch my blog, I said, you know, I feel like I had a come to Jesus moment. Next, Fluids by May Lates. Me with last names is like the worst thing in the world. So this is an extreme horror book. We are following this woman who is chatting on internet dating sites, trying to find someone to kind of fill a void. She's looking for some validation. I don't know. She's looking for someone to talk to, okay? She has a lot of mental health issues. She's very impulsive, lots of commentary about her mental health, and it was handled very well. So she goes in this chat room, she meets this woman, this trans woman, they talk, and you're getting these like chat room dialogues. Like I said, it kind of feels similar to Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca, and they're talking back and forth. She gets very attached to this woman and obsessive, and she's like, I'm gonna come hang out with you right now. And they meet and things get crazy from there. This book is like a fever dream. This book makes you feel like you are drunk the entire time. It gets more and more unhinged and more wild. Typical like unhinged female main character. Absolutely loved this one. And I really liked the commentary on mental health and how you really see our main character struggling with her mental health and kind of like arguing with herself in a way. And then also, you know, there's a lot of commentary with the trans woman and how she's trying to escape this, you know, horrible situation that she's in. And it was all wrapped up really well and just wild. It was batshit insane. So, and I highly recommend this one. If you want like extreme horror, unhinged woman, look no further. And then my last 4-star was Be My Friend by McKay Watson. This is more general horror opposed to his typical wild extreme horror books. But we are following this case where this is all mixed media, by the way. You're getting journal entries, you're getting chat room dialogue, you're getting interviews, you're getting news reports, like so much information, right? All that we know is that the 16-year-old boy named Jacob goes missing. Poof, he's gone. No one knows where he is. And basically we find out in the beginning of the book that his older brother Brandon, who's like 15 years older than him, his son, his pictures were posted on this fetish website. So we're like, what's going on with this family, right? So that happened. He disappears, and all that we know is his last interactions had to do with someone that only is known by Kronos online. So you're following this like dark web aspect where you're trying to figure out who this Kronos is and what happened, and you're also getting interviews from like Jacob's mom and his brother, and you're also trying to figure out how these two cases are linked, if anything that I just said made sense. So yeah, you're following lots and lots of mixed media, which I think is really cool and creative, but it also kind of slows the story down a little bit, which is why I went with 4 stars, because you're just kind of jumping all over the place. But I do think it was done well. There's lots and lots and lots of commentary about mental health and depression and loneliness and attachment and codependency, people pleasing, so much commentary on mental illness, especially through his dialogue with this Kronos and his diary entries. It's very bleak, it's very depressing, again, nihilistic, and really relatable as someone who really suffered with their mental health and identity when I was a teenager. I just felt like parts of this, it was so angry and visceral that I felt very upset. Like I felt connected to this main character. So yeah, I recommend this one if you're looking for a horror mixed media. Like I said, it's not super extreme horror or anything like that. Then moving into 5-star books. I need a drink. I need a drink. This is a lot. I have 5 5-star books. 5. When's the last time this happened? I don't know, probably like a year ago, not even. First, let's start with Whitney Cummings. I read her memoir, I'm Fine and Other Lies. The entire internet has this like obsession with telling me that I look like Whitney Cummings and Anya Taylor-Joy. So I saw that Whitney had a memoir out and I was like, I need to read this because I gotta support my twin, apparently. Also, she messaged me on Instagram like a month ago. Wild. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on YouTube, but if you follow me on Instagram, you might know. She messaged me on Instagram, the real Whitney Cummings, her real account, because I like reposted her reel or something, and she literally went on my page and then messaged me and said that she wishes that she looked like me, which is wild because why? It's a really weird day that day. Lots of weird things happened, okay? But I love her. Literally the nicest human ever. I am obsessed with her now. And I'm a little bit shook that that happened, I'm not gonna lie. But I read this memoir and it was so fucking good. So much, like she really took a deep dive into her mental health, and she's a comedian if you don't know, and you know how she became a comedian and stuff, but more so about her mental health, like anxiety, depression, eating disorders, body dysmorphia, and so much of it was so fucking relatable. And then talking about childhood trauma and like what she learned in therapy and like how her childhood trauma manifested into these mental illnesses. It was just so well done. Like I was actually not expecting this to be as well done as it was, but it was so raw and vulnerable, and I love her. I love her as a person. After reading this, I am like obsessed with her. I'm her #1 fan now because this was so freaking good and actually gave me a lot of insight into my own mental health, and I felt like I could connect 2 and 2 with her. Like actually we are similar people, not just physically, but like I felt so much of this deep in my soul. Now I'm like, Whitney Cummings and I might actually be the same person. I mean, have you ever seen the two of us in a room together? No. Moving on. Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan. Oh, perfection. This is another literary fiction book where we are following this woman who is obsessive and obsessed with love. She is in love with being in love. So she meets this guy, and she's kind of in present day telling us this story about her past. And she's talking about this guy that she met and fell in love with, and they entered this relationship, and it was super, super toxic. And we're learning about him and how he's super toxic and gaslights her and treats her like crap. And she just goes along with it because she's super codependent and just desperate for his love and just desperate to feel wanted and needed, and just the whole attachment obsession issue going on here. Being like, oh, he doesn't really say that he loves me, but that's okay because I'd rather, you know, I'd rather just suffer and be in this relationship than to not be in this relationship. And she just, the way that she just constantly gaslights herself because she's so desperate is really sad. It's very depressing. I kind of, parts of this book I did see myself in, and the way that it's told, they're like these short little chapters, like 2 to 3 pages long. And it was so beautifully written, so many amazing quotes and points about just what it's like to be a woman, and just you know, dealing with relationships and the way sometimes like men treat women. And there was just such great commentary in this book. I absolutely loved it. It felt like a coming of age story where the main character doesn't really learn her lesson. That's what this book felt like. But I just absolutely loved it. It was so stunning. Next, let's talk about Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. I've talked about this book so many times because I fucking love it. So this is a plotless literary fiction book again. So we're following this woman. She is a photographer. So she is an exotic photographer. And what I mean by that is, so she takes photos of unconventionally attractive men. So she will seek them out. Like she'll go to the grocery store and be like, hey, that skinny little dude over there would be great for my photos, you know? And then she kind of like seduces them and convinces them to model for her. And then she makes them do like really fucked up things for these photos. So we're just following her. So she gets approached by this art exhibit that wants to display her photographs. So she's just kind of sitting there like looking through her photos and then telling you stories about the men in her photos. That's kind of this entire book. And we start following like her and her roommate we start to learn about, and then this guy at the grocery store we start to learn about. And that's basically this entire book. She's very unhinged. I'm talking like very unhinged to the point where some of this was straight up hilarious. Her internal dialogue was so fucked up. But at the same time, like a lot of things happened that were sad. Like it did pull on my heartstrings a couple of times. Especially with this one guy. I was like, I felt so bad for him. But yeah, I mean, she is just completely unhinged, very narcissistic, and I want to travel the world with her. So yeah, this does have a similar aspect to American Psycho, where she does become more and more unhinged as the book goes on, and you do follow her descent into madness to the point where you don't really know what's real and what's not. So that's kind of why a lot of people compare this to American Psycho. They're not completely similar. They do have some similar characteristics, and it's kind of like American Psycho for hot girls. That's kind of that's how this book is labeled, and I do agree with that. But it's just not, like if you're looking for American Psycho, that like horror gore aspect to it, you're gonna be very disappointed in this. It is a plotless literary fiction book. Keep that in mind, okay? But it was perfect. I absolutely love it. It was so hilarious, but fucked up at the same time. I can't explain it. This main character is one of my favorite main characters I've ever read from in my entire life. I love her with every fiber of my being. Next, I have two more books to talk about. Let's talk about Chandler Morrison. Everyone's like, oh God, please no. I think I've talked about him in every video for like 2 months now. I don't know what happened. I read Along the Path of Torment in February, and something just clicked in my head where I was like, you know what? I need to be personally indebted to this man for the rest of my life. But I read his new book, American Narcissus, and it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. So this is completely different from his other books. There's no violence, there's no gore, there's no, like, nothing, okay? It's another kind of plotless book, but we are following a whole bunch of different characters as they navigate, like, they're just hot, rich, sad people in LA, and they are trying to navigate, like, falling in love and looking for love in the wrong places. And meanwhile, California is like burning to the ground, okay? There's a bunch of wildfires going on, and they are just really shitty people who do shitty things, and you're just following each one of them and their relationships and kind of where things are going wrong and their feelings. This book is very bleak, depressing, hopeless. You're just following them trying to find a connection in a world without meaning, and just the way that, again, another bleak, depressing, nihilistic book, okay? What more do you expect from me? Sad rich people doing horrible things. But no, I just really loved like a lot of the conversations and commentary that went on in this book and how the characters felt about certain things, and I could see myself in a lot of the conversations and dialogue that went on. It's just a book that hooks you. There were some characters that are very satirical. There are some characters that are just really unhinged. I mean, this book just completely hooked me. I loved it so much, and I just needed to know what was gonna happen. And I am so pleased with the ending. It's just like the typical kind of ending that I love. And if you're curious for like even more in-depth thoughts, I filmed an entire video on this book. I forgot to mention I vlogged every single book that I read this month, so all my vlogs will be linked down below. But if you want full thoughts, non-spoilers, there will also be a full video on this linked, and my turtle, Michelle, also gave a review on this book. But yeah, I don't know. I love this one so much, and it was so different than his other books, but so refreshing. And I love when authors kind of branch out and write something different opposed to their like typical books that they write. So I love this one so much. This one comes out May 14th. So if you are watching this, it's probably the Friday before. So this book will be out in a few days. Go buy it, go read it, talk to me about it. Tell me if you read it. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know everything about everyone at all times. So last but not least, I think I've talked about this book a million times everywhere. It's Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter. This is another literary fiction book where we are following a woman who moves from Pennsylvania to Los Angeles to start a job. You know, she has like a shitty home life, shitty family life, and we find out more about her, but she moves to LA to kind of start new and have like a new exciting life with this company. And turns out this is a very toxic job, very toxic working situation and environment. And she talks a lot about this black hole. She has this black hole that follows her no matter where she goes. Lots of commentary about mental illness, depression, anxiety, and as those things worsen, the black hole gets larger. And we're following, you know, she has a very complicated romantic relationship, and we're following all these relationships in her life that are very toxic and horrible, mixed with this toxic work environment. And the entire book is about her mental health. It is written so beautifully. I mean, the most beautiful, stunning writing I've ever read in my life. Lots of, it's like poetic in a way that makes complete sense and just makes you crawl out of your skin. I don't know how else to explain it. It was so bleak and depressing, but so painfully relatable. If you have any kind of mental illness, I mean, I think you need to read this, because I was blown away by how beautiful and spot on this book was. I mean, I feel like this is one of my favorite books of all time. I already feel like I need to reread this. I don't know. This book just means so much to me and really puts into perspective a lot about mental health. And I felt so deeply for this main character. And the way that this ended, I kid you not, I was so depressed. I was staring at the wall for like an hour. This book is stunning. Please go read this book. I loved it so much. This one and, this one gutted me. Like, all 5 of these books I love so much, and they're so perfect and stunning for their own reasons and in their own way. But like, if I had to pick one that absolutely gutted me, it was this one. So go read this book. Anyways, that was it. That was my wrap up. Those were the 13 books that I read in April. Best reading month I'll probably ever have in my life. So Take a picture, it'll last longer. Okay. I love you guys. Let me know what your favorite book you read in April was in the comments down below. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.